What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Indie Inkwell. I am one of your hosts, JJ. Unfortunately, my co host Michael is out sick today, so he will not be joining us this evening, but the show must go on. And our guest this evening is a very special guest. Normally, the last two episodes, we've done a bunch of horror stuff. We've got a nice change of pace for everybody today, an all ages adventure story, which I'm really excited to dive into. So please, without further ado, welcome our guest, Hamza Pecenkovic.
Yeah, perfect. Wow, that was
Oh, wow. Yay. Cool.
amazing.
Awesome. I was like practicing earlier, making sure I was like, I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but I'm going to try my absolute best.
That's incredible. Wow, I'm flattered that you practiced. That's amazing.
Well,
Well,
I want to make sure I'm addressing everybody properly on the show, like.
no, that's great. I think that's better than my wife. Can't do it. 8 years.
I'll take that as a little badge of honor. So we're not going to bore everybody with a sponsor spot today, since we do not have my co-host with me. I feel like it's not appropriate to be doing money stuff without him, so we're not going to do that. Anyway, Hamza, before we dive into the book itself and get into the nitty gritty, I want to kind of go over your origin story and kind of introduce you to the audience. So how did you become the nerd that you are today? And nerd meant as, as loving as a term as possible.
Yeah, that's the badge of honor, right? You want to be the nerd. So for me, I grew up. I'll start further. I grew up in Bosnia, which is in southeastern Europe, and I don't know. I didn't have a lot of access to a lot of media. It was the '90s. There's a civil war going on. Half the time we didn't have electricity. So
I can imagine there was kind of bigger things to worry
about.
Yeah.
So I didn't get like the normal childhood. So we immigrated to Los Angeles, and I lived like 2 blocks away from a comic book store. So it was something that I could walk past, on my way to school. And I kind of lived at that place, and like I would just go in there and, get my hands on anything that I could. The owner, Steve, and his partner in crime, Jason, they were really good about kind of taking care of some of the kids. Not taking it, that sounds weird, but like they were very welcoming to the kids in the neighborhood that wanted to, read books and
right.
be in the shop. So he would give me access to artwork, to like draw and stuff. Like, if I wanted to hang out and draw some of the books, like he wouldn't really care about me buying or not buying anything because I was a poor immigrant. I had no money. And so once all that kind of, it just kind of snowballed from there. I got into anime, I got into, American animation, just anything that I could. So it was cool. That's kind of the backstory is really that comic book store, which is called Comics Inc. And it is on Overland and Braddock in Culver City. So
okay, so it's still there.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool because there's not a lot of shops from back then that are still around now. You know what I'm saying? They've either changed owners or completely shut down.
Well, yeah, that's a great. The comic book shop that I go to now here in Boulder it's called Time Warp, and they just celebrated their like 36th anniversary, I think.
Oh wow!
So they're also pretty old too. Yeah.
No, that's awesome though. So were there any like particular characters or like types of stories that you gravitated to most as a kid? Was it like superheroes or was it different stuff like the indie stuff back then from like Image?
So that's a good segue. So there was a little bit of indie stuff, and it wasn't necessarily Image. I don't know if anybody remembers Slave Labor Graphics, SLG. I don't know. They did
vaguely. It sounds familiar.
Yeah, they did. These kind of like weird. So Jonan Vasquez who did Invader Zim. If you remember that, he did 2 books. I don't know why I gravitated to these books because they were like not for kids at all. But it's just something I picked up. I thought it was hilarious. It was very funny, very very smart. And if you've seen Invader Zim, you'll kind of know the type of humor that I'm talking about.
Right.
But he did a book called Squee and a book called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. And I
remember Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. That was given to me by a buddy at school, and I was just like, what is this?
Yeah, it was so wild and different. And I think that's what I loved about it most was that it was nothing like any of the superhero books, nothing like any of the manga stuff I was reading. And I was reading those things. It was a huge huge fan of. Still to this day, I love the storyline of Avengers Forever. I talk about it all the time. I think, um,
That's one a lot of people really love those. So.
yeah, yeah. Carlos Pacheco, I'm a huge fan of his work. So and I don't draw anything like that, but I wouldn't consider him an influence. But I just love his style and stuff. So. Um,
No, that's
yeah.
awesome. So, what were like some of your biggest like influences when you decided I'm going to start making my own comic books? Was there like
Yeah.
artists or writers you tried to emulate, or was there like I want to not dive into
So
someone else's style at all? I want to create my own complete new thing.
yeah, so I have a like, and I think I hear some artists say this, where like your style, right, are like the mistakes that you make. They're not necessarily so. Like, how do you incorrectly draw? That's your style. And so for
That's a
me,
unique way to look at it.
yeah, so because it is right. Like if we all drew correctly, fundamentally, we would all draw the same, and that's not true, right? So
Right.
I think it's and I don't know who was the first person that said I didn't come up with that, but I heard somebody say it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it just like opened up my eyes. So I'm like, all right, so if that's true, and I'm looking at other people, whose mistakes do I want to emulate? And so, and that's like I love. Michael Ringo is a huge influence on me. I loved
Okay.
Tello so much, which was written by Todd Zago, who's I've had the pleasure of speaking to a few times. Mike was one of the first artists that I ever had an interaction with online, kind of back in the day. I think I was like 13. We were like sending emails back and forth. Obviously, sadly, he passed away. But if you've ever read his Fantastic Four run, that was incredible. I really love Mike Ringo. He's got a very cartoony, like Western style. And then I do take some influences from some like manga, but I couldn't really give you one artist because like I'm looking at my shelf right now, and I've got I love Junji Ito, which is like not how I draw at all. And I've got like Blade of the Immortal up there, and it's like those things. I don't know if they necessarily influenced me in that kind of art way, but maybe more in the kind of attention to like backgrounds and settings and atmosphere.
Gotcha.
So I hope that answers that.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
So what was like the light bulb moment like that clicked for you? Because this is your first series you're starting, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's so the Crystal Compass is my first big piece of work. I've done some like a little bit of comic work before that for like kind of freelance things. Nothing really ever went anywhere. And I think part of this is I don't really play well with others. Like I don't, which I don't mean to say like in a bad way. I don't think I've found the right collaborator. Right. Like
right.
It's very difficult. I'm sure you know this to kind of jive with somebody on like a story and art level where you're both like, we both want to make this together.
I got very lucky when I discovered Michael as my co-host because he was just like, yeah, dude, let's do it.
And I feel the same way about my colorist, Damir, who's hilariously also, Damir Rosic is an incredible colorist. I implore you, if you are looking for a colorist, get in touch with me and I'll get you in touch with him. He's I love how we work together. And the funniest thing is he's actually from my hometown in Bosnia, which was so
really?
It's like we didn't know each other. We're a couple of years apart, age-wise. And I just randomly, like I put up hey, I'm looking for colorists in like the colorist group on Facebook, and his name popped up, and I was like, oh, that's definitely a Bosnian name. I was like, I'll just check him out, and I looked at his stuff, and I was like, wow, he's good. So I sent him test pages, and he sent them back, and like within a day, and I was like, okay, like you got the job, and I was like, hey, where do you live? Like, because I just assumed he lived here in the States, because a lot of us do, and he, I found out he lives in Bosnia, in my hometown, and I was just like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe how
that's like meant to be.
Yeah, and so inadvertently, this book ended up being a kind of a Balkan Bosnian production.
Inadvertently,
cool.
But I think it probably worked out well because you guys, you could relate to each other real well. So it's probably real easy to kind of just work back and forth with him.
Yeah. It's actually kind of funny because like he practices English with me because I don't have the vocabulary to talk about like color theory and panel layouts and stuff in Bosnian.
Right.
Those are words that I never heard. And so it's tough to, so it's not tough, it's very easy to communicate with each other, but like I'm like, hey man, I kind of want to practice some Bosnian
Right. Well, there you go.
uh,
You guys can both, instead of wasting money on a class, you guys can both just teach each other's
exactly.
language.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think so as far as the light bulb moment, sorry, I kind of went
Oh,
off
no, you're
topic.
fine, man. If people don't talk, well, there's no show.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. For me, I started hanging out with like the Colorado Alliance of Illustrators during art school, and I met this group called Squidworks, and they were like a bunch of, so it's Stan Yan at that time, John Peters, this guy Michael O'Keefe. It was a bunch of different local guys that were doing indie comics like, back in the day. I mean, these guys were, in their 30s when I was like 18, 19.
Right.
And so they really kind of ushered, I might actually be really messing that up. Sorry, Stan, if you're watching this. I don't actually know how old you are, but he's, older than me. But anyway, so great guys, like great group of guys that really kind of opened me up to wanting to draw comics. And the way that they did that was they would host the 24-hour comics challenge, if you're familiar with that.
I do vaguely remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have, so it's an international thing. It's, usually in October. And you have 24 hours to draw 24 pages of a comic. And that's it. Like that's the prompt. Go, have fun. And I did the first one, and I was like, "Oh my gosh! All I ever want to do is draw comics." I'm sorry, I keep looking over there because it's sitting on that shelf over there. The first one I did with them, and that was like my first published piece of work, which was, I was super young, I didn't know what I was doing, but it was a really cool kind of light bulb moment for me because I was like, "Yeah, this is it. This is all I want to do. I want to make comics. I want to tell stories," and I've been trying to do that since, in one way or another. But yeah, it's if you ever get a chance to check out any of the 24-hour comics anthologies, that's some really good indie stuff, and might be worth to check out.
Heck yeah. Well, like I just accidentally clicked on a moment ago, let's go ahead and dive into
Yeah.
the Crystal Compass because, dude, this looks like so much fun just from the preview that I've been able to look at and read.
Mhm.
It gives me Treasure Planet kind of mixed with Firefly
Awesome.
vibes.
I love that. I love that.
So, can you give everybody kind of like a synopsis, kind of a breakdown of the plot and story and stuff?
Yeah, I hate doing this. I always like forget to say something. I'm like, I wrote this. How did I forget? So effectively, the story takes place in. It's sort of a portal fantasy in the vein of Chronicles of Narnia. And what I mean by that is our main character gets taken from Earth to a different place via a portal situation, which is in this case the Crystal Compass. Nico is kind of a bookworm, a nerdy kid, and he sort of lives. Oh, awesome! It wasn't exactly that. So he sort of lives vicariously through his books, and we see a little bit of that in the first few pages. And when he discovers the compass, just kind of hanging out on that little rusty old nail in his grandfather's study, I know we don't have this artwork because I haven't shared it, but he touches the compass and it kind of the compass wakes up and it's sentient. It starts speaking to him and it convinces him to. Yeah, so there's a bit of like weird. Yeah,
I was saying because folks, if you're watching or listening, I haven't gotten the full copy of this yet. I got a preview like everybody else did. So
yeah, so there's a 12-page preview live right now. There's a link to it on our Kickstarter campaign page, but you can also just go to thecrystalcompass.com/exclusive-preview, and that'll or there.
there's a QR code that you guys can scan right there with your phone on the screen. It'll take you straight to the Kickstarter page, and all the links are on that page.
Thank you.
And we'll mention that a couple more times throughout.
Yeah. So we're fully funded at this point, which is amazing. We have about 52 hours left in the campaign. So feel free to check it out. But anyway, we'll go back to the story. So Nico makes his way to Atea, and there he's found by a band of sky pirates who are kind of smugglers. They're fighting the fight against this empire in the best way that they can, and so which is just by helping other people. They're kind of pacifists in that way, even though some of the characters would disagree with that. And or they don't want to be that.
Right.
And so, yeah. And so, as you know, his kind of goal is to find his way home, and his struggle is, do I use this compass to, find my way home, or help my new friends kind of fight the struggle that he's being introduced to through this war that's happening on Atea. And I'm gonna stop it there because I don't want to give away anymore. But it's
No, you're fine. But like, this is what I mean when I say it kind of gave me like Treasure Planet Firefly vibes, because, if for sci-fi fans out there, if you know the show Firefly that got canceled unjustly,
unjustly.
I will never forgive Sci-Fi Channel for that.
That show was incredible. Yeah.
But they were basically a group of sky pirates, space pirates, who would go around basically doing Robin Hood jobs, robbing rich people to help lesser fortunate people. And that's kind of what the vibes I got off of this.
Yeah. There's a lot of influences for this, and I love hearing people's, like every time I talk to somebody different about it, they're like, "Oh, I got these vibes." I'm like, "That's amazing!" Like I wasn't even thinking about that, but you're totally right. Like Firefly, I'm a huge Firefly fan. I don't own a lot of like physical media, and I have like all on Blu-ray. Like,
I'm jealous.
Like I love it so much.
Those are not easy to find anymore.
We have that and like Battlestar. I don't know if you're a Battlestar Galactica fan, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. So kind of give us like, because the main little cast of characters does get introduced during the preview, so I don't think we're going to be spoiling too much.
Yeah.
If we kind of go over them. So we already kind of went over Nico. So let's bring these up in no particular order here. This is Red. Kind of introduce us to Red.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought up Firefly. So Red is kind of like our like engineer. She's the only one running
and
the
that
ship.
Just kind of enhanced the Firefly feeling for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I kind of modeled her like room where after oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Help me out here from Firefly. Oh, this is so embarrassing. I can't remember her name now. The engineer, the mechanic character from Firefly. She has this like kind of cot above the engine and like her toolboxes, I think, in the show, and that was kind of the joke in the Crystal Compass. I did almost a similar thing for Red. So there's I think it's in part one.
Kaylee, right? Kaylee was
yeah, there you go. Goodness.
I can't believe I actually had to look that up. I'm ashamed of myself.
And me too. And there's like
beauty
a joke.
Of live broadcasting, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, you'll forget everything. So yeah, there's a small joke where like the first time Nika goes down there, he's like, "Do you live in here?" She's like, "No." He like totally lives in the engine room, like never leaves. So there's definitely some influences there for sure. But I love Red. She's amazing. She is my favorite character to write because she's very optimistic and kind of. She has a very traumatic past, but she is very kind of happy and doesn't allow anything to really kind of destroy that and bring her down. So she's very inquisitive. She is the one who kind of pushes Nico to figure out what the compass really is, and she's the one that she's that driving force for the story and the plot as well. So.
Yeah, so because I was gonna say, I noticed the compass has a very similar crystal to what is powering their engines.
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about that for sure. So the entire kind of Atea, the whole world, is powered by these. Much like how we would use petroleum or electricity here, they use these crystals, and these crystals are only found on that planet, and they're formed in like these we mentioned it in the preview, the gravity wells or whatever. And they're kind of formed in these gravity wells, and it's essentially like a new element that, pseudoscience. It's a new element that comes out of nowhere because of these pressures, and so you'll see them throughout the whole book. They're all over the place, and Nico and our main bad guy are kind of the only two characters that can manipulate the energy that comes out of these crystals. So. Okay. That's a big spoiler, but it's fine. They haven't seen
Well,
12 days later.
we can always just go ahead and add the disclaimer real quick
Yeah,
and make it a
right.
spoiler
I mean,
warning on screen for
yeah,
our viewers.
that's great. Oh man,
So
I'm like,
next up, we've got
yeah,
Kafka or Kafka.
Kafka. Yeah, Kafka's awesome. I also really love writing her. She's very aggressive, very powerful. She comes from a warrior tribe. She's the last one of that tribe left, and she's just like a powerful character. She's the pilot of the ship, obviously. She's always at odds with the Captain Pearl, which is probably my favorite dynamic. Is them two just going at it all the time. Yeah, and then Pearl is she's the second oldest on the ship. She's the captain. She's had the ship her whole life. There's a bit of mystery about her that we don't really reveal in book one, but we talk about it in book two quite a lot. So she's kind of our Captain Harlock, which is why I don't know if you're familiar with that anime, but I gave her the big cape and
I was gonna say that the cloak that she had on kind of gave off some anime vibes. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah.
That's
She's
still a world I'm just recently dipping my toes into.
oh, right on.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
cool. I mean, it's a huge. There's a huge influence just off for costume design. There's an anime from way back in like the late '60s, early '70s called Space Galaxy Express 999, and
Okay.
one of the characters in that is this guy Captain Harlock, which you can look him up. I think there was a movie that they recently did. Can't remember if
I
it
was
was
say the name Captain Harlock sounds familiar to me, so
Yeah.
I know I've heard it recently somewhere.
Yeah, and he's like a space pirate, so there's quite a bit of an influence there for her character design from him. But yeah, Pearl's super fun to write. She's very like she's definitely a captain. She's definitely kind of like an adult. She wants to take care of everybody. She's wants to make sure that Nico is safe. And when they find Nico, she is kind of that like I have to take care of him because like he's a lost child and she's also an orphan, and so she's like she sees a lot of herself in him.
Instant mother instinct.
Yeah, like yep. And so I really like their dynamic too. And then our last character is Tusk. I think we haven't talked about yet.
I think Tusk is going to end up being one of my favorites because
Yeah.
there's this whole scene where they're arguing back and forth in the background, and he's just like, "Guys, something's bad about to happen."
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
and he just keeps saying it, like, "Guys."
Yeah, he's great. I love Tusk because he is the oldest and he's very he is an ex-imperial officer. He has a lot of experience with kind of the empire and all the bad that they're doing. And as he was on a mission, he is actually the one who kind of finds Pearl. So he and Pearl have been together for a very long time, and he's been kind of like her father figure. And so that's his role on the ship. He's like a very not like he's very paternal, right? In a very different way than how Pearl is with Nico. He kind of takes care of all of them. He does all the cooking and he does all the cleaning. There's quite a few times where he complains about doing all the cleaning, which is something that parents do, right?
Right. So basically, if Pearl's the mom of the ship, then Tusk is the dad of the ship.
Yeah, but in like a totally innocent way, and they're not.
Right.
Not so age out there.
This is an all ages book, folks.
Yeah, there's none of that. But yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like they're, if he's the very older brother, a lot older. So yeah, I love Tusk is super fun to write. He's kind of a bruiser. He's like a fighter character type, that archetype. He doesn't really have any sort of weapons or anything like that. He just will, beat you down with his fists if he needs to. But generally, he's so intimidating and so big that
he doesn't even have to.
Yeah, he doesn't really have to. Yeah, so.
I mean, that's the best kind of person to have around, right? The people that can do something, but they never need to.
Yeah, exactly. So he drives a lot of the kind of as far as like his plot purpose. Like he does a lot of he gives us a lot of the history of the world through his exposition of Atea, and kind of explains a lot of those things to the reader. So we get quite a lot of screen time with Tusk. So You'll see a lot of him. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
That makes me happy. So, besides finding, someone to do the coloring for this, was there any like major challenges in getting it done? Besides just the obvious of, it takes a lot of time and effort to
Mhm.
do this well and do it to a certain standard.
Yeah, absolutely. I still feel like I'm not hitting my personal standards. So there's quite a lot of like editing that I always like. Well, I'll get a page back and I'll be like, "Ah, I'm gonna redraw this," and then Dominic, my colorist, is like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not recoloring this. Like, I have to. Like, I don't care. Here's like more money. Just do it. Just shut up. Just shut up and take my money." So I'm constantly like I'm already thinking about because we've kind of hit our goal. I'm like already thinking about like, all right, I know I have X amount of pages still to draw, but I also want to fix like 4 or 5 pages. So I'm like, all right, we're just gonna redo them, and not necessarily in the prologue, but like in chapter one. So the biggest part of this book was writing it. It's actually it's 236 pages, and when I first tried to do when I first tried to do a Kickstarter, I was trying to do the whole thing, and I was like, I'm gonna need $25,000, and we did not hit that goal. We didn't even get halfway. We got close to halfway, and we failed. And I was like, okay, I got to rethink this. And so I talked to a lot of people. It's my friend Steve Ekstrom, who's also the editor and the letterer on the book. He works for Sumerian Comics. Steve's amazing. He's a great resource and helps quite a lot with that sort of stuff. Where I'm like, hey, I need advice. Like, how do I fix this? How do I make this better? Like, is there a different solution to this that I'm not seeing? And he was one of the people that suggested to like of a few to just split it up and just say like, okay, we can split this up into 3 books. And so I do that. And so it's, or 3 parts of book 1, I should say. And so I split it up and we ran the Kickstarter for part 1. So here we are. And I'm hoping that I don't have to do another Kickstarter because it's not fun. But we'll see. Like I don't expect to be able to sell enough copies in a timely manner to do the second one. Maybe we will. I hope we do. But yeah, it's and so the goal here is like we'll just do it in chunks, and I think that's better.
Well, it builds that anticipation up, right? Like
I
for
think
people
so
who
too.
get
Yeah,
the first book, they want to get
yeah,
like, oh, okay, well now I need the next one.
yeah. Instead of just getting this like big chunk and you just sit there and you're like, okay, I'm done, because it would take me so much longer to do, to write book 2, which is what I've already started writing, but there's still so much more
It gives
work.
you that little buffer because you can sit there and go around the little convention, circuit and kind of push the book for a year or 2 and then, get your stuff all set and ready and
Yeah.
done for the second book.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So book 1 will come in 3 parts. So the hope is that I can release it quickly, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with book 1 first, right, or part 1, and then if it turns out that I do have like a good audience and fans of this, then you will move on to book 2. I'm really interested. Obviously, I love indie comics, but I am really interested in selling, or not selling the book, but like pushing it to publishers. Obviously, who isn't?
Right.
Yeah, but if that doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It's not gonna define whether or not we tell the story, because I do really think that the story is important to tell. There's some themes in there that we discuss that are or not discuss, but like we can try and talk about,
Hmm.
that I think are important, especially in today's age. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it'll go. But,
Heck yeah, that's awesome. So why did you decide to go the all ages route? Because I
yeah,
know a lot of first time comic book creators, they go the horror route because they know it'll sell.
yeah. So I'm on this. That's great. This is a great question, and I'm going to try not to get a lot of people in trouble. But so I love all ages books myself. Like I'm a huge fan of like Avatar: The Last Airbender is a huge inspiration for me. And
But
I
sometimes you don't need all the dark and craziness. Sometimes you just want something that's fun. Like,
yeah, yep, just something that is accessible to everybody. And I say that I think a lot because like you kind of shoehorn yourself into like a niche, right? And right, if you want to sell books, you want to sell it to as many people as you can.
Right.
And I know that all ages can definitely be like, you're like, oh, well, it's only kids that are going to be reading it, but like I wrote the book so that it's also just like Avatar would, or any good written animated show. There's definitely stuff there for adults. That it's just
I mean,
presented
look,
to
if you want
you.
a really good example, look at the whole Marvel's zombies thing they did
Yeah,
with the
yeah,
What If series. I mean, that was animated, but I know adults that loved that. I know kids that loved that, even though I don't really know what a couple of those episodes would be probably not appropriate for
yeah.
kids, but
And so, and then that's a great point, because like I'm like, okay, I know this is appropriate for kids, and I know that and I know that adults are also going to be able to take something away from this. And so um, it's not like I'm saying I'm only ever going to make kids comics, but I, especially with the Kickstarter kind of it seems like there's a lot of adult stuff on Kickstarter, especially when I started
oh, yes,
exploring.
after we're off the air, I'll tell you a story of a book that got sent to me not long ago. It was the
Yeah,
guy was like, "I wanna come on your show," and I was like, "Dude, I cannot promote like,
you're like
we've
I
got a
love
graphic
you.
content warning when we do, like, graphic horror stuff, but there's some things, like, I'm not gonna have adult-only
Yeah,
books on here. I just can't do that, man." Like
and it's like I also think about things that I would consume myself, and I'm like,
right, I'm not interested in that, like
that's not.
if I'm
Yeah,
not gonna read it or, like, recommend it to somebody, then I'm not gonna put it on my show.
right.
Like,
So I'm sorry, my dog
"Oh, you're good."
sorry about that. So I totally derailed me. I'm so sorry. We
No,
were
you're good.
talking.
You were saying, how you weren't gonna always do only, like, kids
Yeah,
or
yeah,
all
yeah,
ages
yeah. Thank
comics.
you. Oh my goodness. So my goal is to do to kind of finish off this story, and tell it in the way that I need to, or want to, or whatever, and then the next step in this is maybe kind of diversifying my own portfolio of stories. And um, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of different stories that I could kind of tap into when the time is right. But I could literally write 9 books of the Crystal Compass. There's a lot there, I think, that we can explore, and that could be fun. And I have 3 books planned right now, and I think I think that would be a nice like round number. Like we just do a trilogy or whatever, and then release like a big old omnibus at the end of it, and we'll be done with it. And move on to other stuff, because I do love horror. I love mystery. I love science fiction so much. I have so many sci-fi stories in my brain that I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. I love superheroes too. I don't know if I'm the right person for that world, like that that kind of thing. I tend to shy away from superhero books sometimes, because it's, and I think of it in the way that it's like, how many times can we really tell a superhero story? Like,
I agree with that because I was at a convention not too long ago, and there was a panel hosted by a few comic shop owners, and even the shop owners are like, "Don't bring us more superheroes.
yeah,
Our shelves are overflowing with superheroes.
yeah,
Like, it's really hard to sell an indie superhero.
yeah.
Like, it just is."
It is, yeah. It's. I mean, and it's because like Marvel and DC have been doing it so well for so long, and I feel like the only time that we've really seen something that kind of shifted that paradigm was Invincible and Spawn.
Yeah.
And they've
I mean,
already
I'm
done
sure
that.
there's, like, some outliers that we're not thinking of, but it's,
Yeah, yeah,
like,
yeah. I agree.
it's
Yeah,
few and far between, though.
yeah. And it's like, you know, I love stories like Hellboy so much. They're very like, they kind of have a superhero feel, and I think some aspects of the Crystal Compass people are going to see a superhero influence, especially because, and I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the compass gives Nico powers that
Mhm.
he can, yeah, and so I guess we said that earlier, kind of.
Yeah, but I think there's ways to do that without it feeling superhero-y. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I'm saying? Because they could be magical powers. They can
yeah,
be
yep. it's very
mind powers.
yeah,
There's all kinds of different routes you can go down.
yeah, and it's very different in the sense that it feels more like it's not like Superman or something. It's very like anime, very manga influence in the way that we present the powers, and so at least how we draw them. And so I'm excited for people to see that because that is a huge part of my comics history is like superheroes, and I never want to downplay. I think superhero comics are incredible, and especially modern superhero comics. Like when I look at some stuff that's drawn by Stuart Immonen, I'm just like, how is this man doing this? Like this
Oh
is
my goodness.
it's just so beautiful, and like and I don't think a lot of comic book illustrators get the credit that they deserve. Like I really love Clayton Henry. Like his stuff is incredible. The stuff he's done for DC, and like I mentioned, Carl Pacheco earlier. Like they're just such skilled draftsmen, and like I don't know if I can work at that level. Like, I mean, I don't know if it's a confidence thing or if it's just like I just know that like, and I'm gonna mention my friend Zach Howard, who's also an incredible draftsman. But
I've interviewed Zach Howard. He was an early guest on my previous show I was doing for Nerd Initiative. So yeah, shout out Zach Howard. Nice
yeah,
guy. I'm
great
really
guy.
excited
Yeah.
for his book Moonshine Bigfoot. It looks
Yeah.
really
So,
cool.
and you've got somebody like him who can kind of hit both of those worlds. Like you've seen some of his stuff that he's done for Batman or whatever, and then you like look at the stuff that he did for Hellboy, and you're like, this is the same guy doing like two completely different things, and I don't know. It's just like I don't know if I'm confident enough at this point in my like art career or whatever to be like, yeah, I can do this like X-Men story and then come back and do some goofy stuff. But like right now, I want to learn as much as I can and get as good as I can, and then maybe we'll tackle some superhero stuff. But like I said, I don't think there's much you can do in that world anymore that's new and different, at least.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing is I'm sure there's some original stories lingering out there that haven't been told yet, but they need to get those people with those ideas into that writer room, like, and they don't.
Yeah.
Marvel
It's
and DC are very set in their ways.
yeah.
So as far as you said, you do want to get this onto some publishers. Are there any publishers that you'd like to, kind of be like, give a shout out to real quick? Like, hey, I'd like to pitch this book that we're talking about here.
Hi, Titan, Dark Horse. What's up? Boom would be a dream. Dark Horse and Boom would be amazing. I really feel like Boom is like a place where it would fit in very well. But I don't
They
know.
do have a lot of variety over at Boom.
Yeah.
It seems like they have a little bit of something for everybody over there.
Yeah, and they have a very good like YA or all ages collection or catalog, I guess is the right term. And so does Dark Horse. I mean, obviously, like I'm looking at they print the Avatar books. That's huge. And so it would, I would love to land somewhere like that. In time, obviously I have a pitch package like ready to go. So just but well, all in time. Let's get it funded. Let's get some work. Let's get it some work done and be able to present like a finished product to them and just be like, look, this is done. Like just sign the paperwork and we're good to go.
Right. You ain't got to do no work behind it. It's already ready to go. You just got to, put your little company's logo on there and put it on the press for me.
Yeah. So it's important for me to like I really want to be in comic. Obviously I want to be in comic book shops, but I also want to be in bookstores. Like and it's funny. Like I was in Costco a little while back, and they had this like huge bin of kids comics. Like this massive bin.
They're starting to pop up in more and more places.
Yeah.
Like I've actually started seeing like 5 packs of random comics at like Walmart.
Yeah. And I think it's because we're seeing this like kind of slight diversification in distribution with Simon & Schuster getting involved and
Penguin and
yeah, exactly. And so the places where comics are starting to pop up are starting to be different. And I think that's bad for comic book stores, to be honest with you. But it's good for comics, and as much,
I was just saying, especially like bad for comic book stores. Speaking of the ease of digitally publishing your books these days,
yeah.
it's insane. I did a YouTube video not long ago that literally 3 free places you can publish your books online.
Did you
Like,
talk about Global? Did you
yep.
talk about Global? Yeah, yeah, they're great. I the first time I ever published the 12-page preview was on Global, just to like see how it would do. And I did zero advertising for it, just because
Mhm.
the purpose of it was to see how their
Right.
algorithm kind of works. And we've had some reads off of there. But I like their setup. I'm really interested to see like where that's going to go. I just don't like reading comics digitally. Like I remember,
I'm a big fan of the physical book. I
yeah,
wanna touch it,
yeah,
I wanna feel it, I wanna actually, like, flip through it and
yeah. That being said, though, I am playing a webtoon. So,
hey,
with
make use of any resource available,
yeah,
right?
webtoon is great. I think that's also, it's incredible that is, it doesn't get talked about enough, but it's massive, and I think it's
It's
almost,
huge.
it's massive.
There's series on there that do huge numbers too, like
Mhm.
ridiculous money on that
Yeah,
app
yeah,
because they
and
offer ad revenue sharing. There's another app. It's called, I think it's called Tapas. Yeah, Tapas dot something.
yeah, I've heard of them.
And they you can even upload novels on there and
That's
publish a full blown novel, manga, comic books. I mean, and they offer merch store options in there. There's a lot of good options for indie people now.
yeah, and so yeah, and like it's good that you talk about that, because there's, a lot. Like I said, I don't feel like many creators know what resources are actually out there, and it all just kind of comes down to like, do you want to build an audience? Do you want to have books on shelves? Do you want to, you kind of have to pick your like your weapon of choice, I guess. like,
Right.
like, all right, I want to build an audience. I'm gonna release a webtoon, and we're gonna be super consistent. It's gonna be very, geared towards that webtoon audience. And then, once we hit, it's not gonna be Crystal Compass, but
Right.
yeah, but once we hit a certain kind of readership, then you have that audience. You can say, hey, I have this other book out, by the way. Like, you can check it out. And so
No, but that's how you do it. You introduce something to one group of people, you introduce something completely different to a different group of people, and then be like, hey, if you like that, I got this other thing.
yeah,
Like,
you might like this. Yeah.
right.
So there's some, there's some options out there for publishing and printing for sure, that require $0, but it all depends on what problems you're trying to solve for yourself.
Right. And like what goals you have for yourself.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to get on a big major publisher? Is that a dream of yours, or is it just a dream to get your stuff out there? It just, I think it just depends on what your priorities are.
Yeah.
So, is there any advice that you would give to somebody doing their first book that you wish somebody would have told you when you started doing this one?
Don't write and draw it. The book.
So you're saying hire an artist.
Yeah, or a writer. I don't know.
Whatever you're doing, hire the other one.
Yeah. No, I'm kidding. I'm kind of a control freak. I like having the. I like having the.
I think a lot of
control.
creatives are, though.
Yeah. I want to have my hands in all of it. I'd probably upset my colorist all the time. So I was like, "Oh, can you change this color? Can you make it warmer?" And he's like, "Dude, just." I said that. I just blame it on. I'm like, "Oh, Steve, the editor, told us we need to do it."
There you go. Blame the editor. Always blame the editor, man.
It's always just me. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, this is a tough one, because it depends on like if you just want to get into comics, and just do it. Like, it's so dumb. Like you can't drive a parked car. Like,
Right.
like,
No, it makes sense.
like you've got to just do it, and do it in a way that is comfortable to you. If that means drawing them in your sketchbook and never showing anybody, whatever. Or if that means doing it on like digitally on a tablet, and doing for webtoon or whatever, do it like that. It doesn't matter, as long as you're telling those stories, and as long as you're getting that stuff that's inside of you that needs to get out. You'll be happy. Like the the serotonin hit I get from finishing a page is unreal. And so,
So just finishing a page gives you that nice little boost.
yeah. And then on top of that, I send it out to the colors, and the colors come back, and it looks so much better than anything I would have imagined. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't.
I don't think colorers and letterers get enough credit at all,
Uh,
because
I
I've
agree.
seen bad lettering and I've seen bad color work,
Yeah,
and it's obvious
yeah,
when it doesn't mesh well.
yeah. It could be really bad.
But
And
for the
I
story you're telling in this, from what I've seen so far, the colors, like the color palette and like just the overall tone of it, like it's not super dark. It's real
no,
bright. It feels like a like Treasure Planet, real bright,
yeah,
vivid
yeah.
colors. Like there's a lot of glow effects going on.
I love that movie. By the way, that's great. There's actually that movie is based off
Such
of
an underrated movie.
the Treasure Island book, which is actually referenced in page 14, I want to say, of the Crystal Compass. That's how much I was like, it's a big plot device, but you'll see that when you read it. I'll send you the the PDF as soon as
Oh, you'll have to, because like that's the one case where I will read digital
yeah,
comics.
right.
When I can't find the physical somewhere or it's not available, I will definitely read
Yeah,
digital.
we'll definitely you'll know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a big piece of that, and Treasure Planet did it so well. It's such a cool adaptation to that book, and I'm a big fan, and so I'm very happy that you saw that influence in that, because I don't think I've ever said it out loud, but that movie is fantastic, and it's cool that I can draw any bit of creativity from it. So,
Well, it'd be hard not to draw some kind of inspiration for something out of that movie. It was
yeah,
just so well done, especially like just the animation, especially for when it came out. What was it, like late 90s, early 2000s?
yeah,
If people go back and watch CGI, I know people complain about the MCU CGI these days. I'm like, you guys don't understand what we dealt with in the 90s and early 2000s. Like some
yeah.
horrible computer generated animations back then. But
The
that
the
was an
rock,
exception for sure.
the Scorpion King, the Rock face.
Oh my god, that was so bad. That was in what, Mummy Returns?
Yeah, one of the mummies. Yeah, is that 1999 cinematic masterpiece. So, I do love that movie.
Oh, I mean, you can't help but love those movies, even how bad the CGI was.
Yep.
So before we get out of here, I don't want to keep you all night. Especially the night before Thanksgiving, for anybody that
Oh,
celebrates it out there, have a very good holiday tomorrow.
thank you.
Is there anything else you want to plug? Where can people find you? Where can people find the book? Where can people
Yeah,
see all that you do?
yeah. So, like I said, I'll mention the Kickstarter first. So the book is still live on Kickstarter. We have about 50-ish, 51, 52 hours, something like that left. Um, you can find everything you need to know about the book on that page. I worked really hard on that page.
It's very well put together. I've seen some very poorly put together artwork.
um, thank you. And then if you want to see anything else that has to do with the book, you can go to thecrystalcompass.com. It's a normal website. It's got some. That's where our 12-page preview is, and it's got some old concept art that's on there that I really need to like clean up. But you can just look at it. It's I think that website gets like 2 hits a month, and so there's nothing crazy going on
Well,
there.
hopefully we can boost that number a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it. And then as far as social, like, I'm really really active on TikTok, and it's just at illustrations by Hamza, Hamza. It's the same for Instagram. I'm not like that. I just jumped on Twitter for the Kickstarter campaign, so I'm not really on there.
So go
But
where it's active is what he's saying. Go to
yeah,
Instagram and TikTok.
just Instagram and TikTok are my 2 biggest. Obviously, Facebook is huge. You could just search me Hamza. Hamza
I
Pecenkovic.
think that's how we got introduced, was through a Facebook group, I believe.
Yeah, you had posted about kids comics, and I saw that.
Yes, that was it. Yes.
I want to do this. And yeah, so Facebook is huge for me. If you're on Facebook, I know a lot of like younger people probably aren't. So I always feel like an old man when I'm like, oh, I use Facebook a lot.
Hey, I use it for work, man. It still does better than you would think, folks. I'm
I
telling you.
know it really does. It's a good spot for sure.
So you can go ahead and scan that QR code that you see on the screen right there to go directly to Hamza's website and check out his other work that's going on over there. I'll leave the QR code up on the screen again for the Crystal Compass. If you still want to get your copy before the Kickstarter ends, you can scan that QR code right now and go over and do that. And if you want to help the show grow and help grow the indie comic book community, you can go ahead over to our merch store at the QR code on the screen. Buy a t-shirt, buy a hoodie. We're going to have hats and a couple other things available here real soon, but we've got a few different options. We got long sleeves, t-shirts, hoodies, all kinds of different stuff. And if you prefer to listen to your podcast in the future, we do post these episodes every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to Spotify, and they go over to the other platforms where you can get your podcasts as well. Is there anything else you want to talk about real quick before we get out of here, my friend?
No, I'm just super thankful in because of the season. Just want to say thanks to all the backers. I think obviously this book would not have been even possible without everybody that's backed the project. So that's a huge, just a huge thank you for me to, and then all the people that have shared and obviously thank you to you.
Oh, dude, of course. No, this was a blast. We'll definitely have to have you back on in the future when you've got something
Yes,
else going.
we can hold the books and talk.
Yes. We'll see. Then we can do reactions.
Yeah.
The before and after. Like, okay, I've read the preview. Now let me actually read the full thing.
Yeah. Sweet. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not a problem. So stick around after we go off the air and we'll chat a little bit more. But everybody watching, thank you very much for hanging out with us today. If you haven't, if you're listening, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. And everybody, please be safe, be kind, and take it easy. We will see you again next week. Take it easy, guys.